These video notes give an overview of Week 3 topics and lay the foundation for writing Java programs. Here are the learning outcomes: naming, creating, and using variables to store information, making the best data type choice for a variable, using Java's best practice naming style. Before diving into the details of Java programming, let's review the big picture. The reason computer systems have become so popular is that we can get them to do useful work for us. That is possible because we can change their software. We have one set of hardware, but we can run different programs or software on the device. So your smartphone is actually a sophisticated computer system that can be used as a phone, a camera, a GPS device, an internet communications tool, or for entertainment, such as listening to music, playing games, or watching movies. We could add to that already long list, but I think you get the point. The power is in the software, or programs that we load into the computer. That is what this course is about. How do we get a computer to do things for us? This course explores the fundamental building blocks of creating Java programs. Remember that any Java program you write can be run on any system that has a Java virtual machine. Pretty cool, huh? Here we see a graphic of a computer system and a computer program. We will think about our programs in this way. The overall goal is to get the program to produce some sort of output for us. If we are writing a resume, we want it to produce a neat document from the information about ourselves that we type in. If we are trying to get directions, we want the output to be a detailed map for getting from our current location to a destination. When listening to music, we tell it what album we want to hear, and the music is output. This is always a good starting point for thinking about what a program needs to do. The output. We will come back to it throughout the semester. You may come across the term IPO chart. Here it is, an input, process, output chart. We are on the way to learning about how to produce program output. Here are two Java instructions, also known as statements, that produce output. System out print produces the hello world, and system out print line produces Java is fun and advances to the next line. Now let's talk about the process. The process part of a Java program is built with a limited set of Java ingredients. Over the course of the semester, we will be adding to our set of ingredients. You can think of these like the staples you keep in your kitchen that are common to many recipes. Just about every programming language shares these ingredients: variables, constants, and operators. Let's become expert at how Java uses them in programs to solve problems. We're going to start with variables. One way to think about a variable is as a storage box that we can keep things in so that we can take them out of storage and use them when we need them. To find what we are looking for, we need to label the box. In programming, a variable name or identifier is like the label on the storage box. Here are some other Java program examples. We might need to save somebody's name, their middle initial, a game score, whether or not their work shift is over, and the name of my favorite band. Another way to think about variables is in terms of their data type. This is an important programming consideration because we need to identify the type of the variable. What kind of data is going to be stored or saved in the box, so to speak? To get started, we will be using string, int, and double most frequently. We will practice with booleans very soon too. Note that Java has a few other types that are not as popular but come in handy under special circumstances. They are special types of integers like byte, short, and long, and another kind of decimal number called a float. For beginning programmers, the 5 we have listed will cover all of our needs. A string can represent a sequence of characters, like a name, or the name of my favorite band. A char is just one single character, so we could use a char to represent a middle initial. Ints are whole or counting numbers. We use these when we want to keep score in a game or do integer arithmetic. Doubles are numbers that have a decimal point. Things like pi, 3.14, or my net pay. And booleans are just true or false indicators. These are sometimes called flags in programming. Is my work shift over? That might be represented as a boolean, and the answer would be true or false. Variable declaration. The declaration of variables lets Java set up storage locations in memory to keep track of your program's data. Here is the format: the type, the identifier name, and then a semicolon. Notice that the names convey information. It is important to use meaningful identifier names for variables in your program. After all, we are writing code, and we want to be able to figure out what the code is doing. Naming things clearly helps you and others reading your code to understand what it is doing. So here are some good programming names that we might use in a computer program. My favorite band would be represented as a string. Legal age to vote might be represented as an int. My pay, a decimal number, would be represented as a double. And an indicator whether or not it is time for lunch could be a boolean. Java will create the storage boxes for the variables you declare. Next, let's look at variable assignment. Now that we have declared variables, we need to give them some value. Assignment is when we give some value to our variables. It's like putting something into the box. My favorite band, that we saw declared as a string in the previous slide, we assign the value Arcade Fire. The legal age to vote, we assign it the value 18. My pay this week, we assign it the value 345.68. Notice we don't include a $sign. Java would not understand that. And variable time for lunch, well, it's true. It is time for lunch. Here is an example of what is known as variable declaration with initialization. This is combining the declaration and the assignment into one statement, and it's considered pretty good programming practice to do this. Here we see the declaration string My Favorite Band with the assignment of Arcade Fire. Int legal age set to 18. Double my pay initialized to 345.68. and Boolean variable time for lunch assigned a value of true. Here are some of the rules about naming variables in Java. The variable names must begin with either a letter, an underscore, or a $sign. Best practice, start with a letter. Variable names can only have letters, underscores, $sign, or digits 0 through 9. Note, no periods or dashes are allowed in a Java name. No spaces are allowed either. And you cannot use a reserved word as a variable name or identifier. You can see the list of reserved words in your textbook. Java is what's known as a case-sensitive language. That means that anytime you use a capital letter, it's not the same as using a lowercase letter. We saw this a little earlier in the slides last week. So, Java with a capital J is not the same as Java with a lowercase j in a Java program. Another rule is that you cannot give two different variables the same name inside a method. Code like a Java programmer. Best practice style of coding in Java is to start a variable name with a lowercase letter and use what's called camel case notation. Capitalize each word in the name after the first word. So here is an example. First name, start with lowercase f. The second part of the name is name. Start that with an uppercase letter so that it's easy to read. Use very explicit identifiers. Total bill gives a lot more meaning to the program than tot. Meaningful variable names initialized with constant values that match their type. Let's take a look at this slide. Here we see putting all these ideas together. The data type for my favorite band would need to be a string. Why? Well, because it's made up of characters, and we put those inside quotes. The constant value, quote, arcade fire, end quote, matches the data type string. Int legal age assigned a constant value of 18. 18 is a whole number, and so that is a perfect match to an int variable. A number like 7 or 0 or -10 would also be fine. Double type myPay equals assigned value 345.68. Here again, double variables have a decimal component. There may be a lot of digits after the decimal point, or for a number like 34.0, actually no weighted value after the decimal point. But you could distinguish doubles from ints because they do have decimal points. Boolean is just an indicator of true or false. We're examining the truthiness of something. Is it time for lunch? Yes. Assign it a value of true. You're now ready to dive into Chapter 2. Please read it carefully, review the sample programs, and post any questions, thoughts, or concerns to the forum. Happy Java coding!